So first of all, welcome back everyone. Thank you very much for joining this session. As I know that it has been a long week, fourth day. You have already attending a lot of sessions. Also, most of you will be waiting to go back to your work, meet your family and friends. One thing I can tell you that I'm not going to ask you to remember everything from this session. It's too much of information. However, I will tell you that how you will remember this session in a way that when you remember in your work that related to change, compliance, or standard configuration, you will automatically recall this session. How? We will tell you in the next 30 minutes of the demos, and we have a lot of demos to talk about it. So let's talk about, let me introduce myself first. My name is Sitanshu Verma. I'm a lead operation engineer at Management and Security Division. My team is primarily responsible for all operations and engineering work related to configuration manager at internal Microsoft IT. Along with my peer and colleague, Karthik.
Hi, I'm Karthik Jaivel. I'm a senior service engineer in MPST in the group called Service Delivery Services. As part of the team, we deliver certain services like patch management, software distribution, DCM, and power management. And Sitanshu and I work in the same group. And welcome back again, and then thanks for attending our session.
Thank you, Karthik. So I know most of you have already decided to attend this session just reading the title of this, that, oh, this is a system center stack, let's find out what's going on here. I want to just to let you know what we are going to talk about to have the level set, and this is what the session objective we put together. Before we go into the session objective, let me ask you this question to all of you. How many of you experienced a situation where you have all teams are in a conference room and they are trying to solve some problem related to service outage or some change happened, nobody knows who made the change? Wow, almost like 50% of the room. And that's the problem we also had in our Microsoft IT itself. Like we have a data center team, we have AD team, we have network team. And when something goes wrong, nobody knows who made the change. Like it's very difficult to find the problem, and even the changes were made for improvement, but it doesn't know what is the dependency on that chain on other application and services. So that's the main goal is here to showcase that how and demonstrate through the demos that how we made it easy through technology to track changes, standard configuration, strengthen compliance, to increase your service availability and health. So that's my goal to showcase and tell you the story here. So we are going to talk about the lot of things today. So one of the things we are going to understand the DCM, which is a desired configuration management feature of configuration manager, because that's a base of entire solution or process which we are going to talk about. We will also talk about how you can take the DCM as an input to your operations manager and service manager to have integration end to end. We will also demonstrate some of the other real world scenarios like compliance. Some of you have like SOX compliance or HIPAA or SAS 70 compliance. We'll talk about that, what are the other real world scenarios you can use this solution. And the last, we'll also conclude with the best practices. One thing I would like to have a favor from all of you. If you have any question, we love to answer those questions. However, just wait till end of this session so that we finish the story on time. And also we have 10 minutes dedicated for the Q&A. So that will be have ample time, and we have business card here, so you can take it. If you don't have question now, you can always follow with us offline, or we have an email ID shared in one of these slides. So let's get started with our main thing. Here's a quick introduction of our team. We already talked about our introduction. I don't want to repeat anything there. What the main purpose of is here that we are not sales and marketing team, so we are not selling anything here. We are not product and development team, so we are not going to talk about everything about the product. We are just like one of you, IT pro in Microsoft. And we have the same challenges what you face day to day. Also, the main point to bring it here, you see the different customer. We are not just managing the Microsoft IT. We are also managing some of the Microsoft online customers, such as Energizer, the battery company, and few more, like Microsoft retail store. What it helps us to give the real world experience, not from only the large enterprise customers, as well as to meet some of your customers like which you have like 500, 600 devices. We also have the experiences, whatever we share here, for large to medium and small customers. So that's the point I want to bring from this slide, not to talk about anything about the team. Let's move forward. So why we build all this solution, why we are here, why we are talking about our goal. So we have a challenge in our environment that how do we increase our availability? That was our business, and our management asked us to that, oh, we have how do we get to 4 nines? That's a dream state. And the 4 nines, we can only go when we don't have any outages. We don't have any service disruption. And the only way we can do it, if we have a better control on the changes, the better control on the compliance, and the better control and a known state for the standard configuration. And that was one thing that we wanted to do, that availability increase. We want to have compliance better. We want to have the alerting and automation, because there could be some standards which you want that if they are not meeting your standard, they should be automatically remediated. You don't need to be having a human involved to fix those changes. There could be some changes in the configuration where you want, okay, these changes, I really want me to look into it, or system engineer should go and fix that problem, because automation could be a disaster for making those changes immediately. So we will talk about both scenarios. And we also wanted to integrate all the actionable thing through your ticketing system, which could be anything like service manager or anything what you've been following in your environment. So what we look into the solution for solving all these 4 problems, we came with the 3 technologies which we already been using it in our environment, like System Center Configuration Manager, System Center Operations Manager, and System Center Service Manager. These all 3 technologies is not mandatory. I know that some of you, let me ask you, how many of you are using all 3? 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have 4 people who are using these 3 all technology. However, if you are just using configuration manager and ops manager, you can still do the same thing what we are going to talk about in the entire session. Because service manager, what we have used for ticketing, and you can use any tool or a product what you are using. What we gain all these things, what we increase our standard across our platform. When we ran first time this solution, we found so many incidents or servers which does not meet the standard configuration. We also have accuracy. Accuracy means that because there are a lot of capacity increase, new servers coming in, and changes going on, we want to make sure whenever the changes happen, it should meet our standard. And also we have resolved the time for investigation in terms of reducing the time. When our tier 1 or system engineer or analyst goes to solve the problem, the first step they go into it, they check in the compliance, whether this server meets the standard compliance, rather than going and figuring out what change could have happened. If it doesn't meet the compliance for the standard settings, it could be the SQL, it could be the IS, or it could be any setting on the server or application. They can immediately say that let's fix the standard configuration first, then look into the problem, because that could be a result of that problem. So these are the solutions and this is the story we are going to talk about. So some of the key scenarios which we covered at Microsoft IT when we started this solution, some of them, like that we have, as I talked about, we have multiple customers at Microsoft, like Microsoft IT and Energizer, the external customers. We have different compliance, and it's like too much manual work to do the compliance. Like every quarterly they do audit, every 6 months we have to present this data, who is local admins, who are approved, how many changes done. It makes very easy for us when we automated this solution. For example, one of the change we have to report who are the local admins, because these are the very high availability servers and have restricted access to the users. So we want to comply who are the approved local admins. So we'll talk about how we track that one. The SQL service authentication. There are some service accounts. We just mentioned the SQL service, but it could be any service where you have some service account which are having a high privileged access on your services and on your infrastructure. So you really want to audit those accounts if they are ever compromised. If they are being used for some other purpose, or if they have been not running, the service are running with another account. So you can really get alerted and known if something goes wrong. In our retail store, which are like point of sales devices, which are cash machines in Microsoft, those machines are not allowed to access internet. So we really want to have port 80 check that inbound traffic and outbound traffic, what's going on, so we can really monitor those state and be informed. The other thing we also did some of the application level settings. For example, in WSS, you want to set in that how many machines are scanning through your internal WSS versus when Microsoft update or any other URL what you have to scan. You can, lot of web applications are dependent on the IS, like IS has pool cache, you have a pool settings. You can do a lot of settings monitoring, and if any setting does not meet, it will automatically remediate or action based on whatever decision you make. So we did the IS settings monitoring. Windows update agent settings internally on all the desktop, we also monitor through that process. So these are some key scenarios. There are more This is just to set you an example of what we did and what we are going to talk about in our examples and demonstration. Now, to talk about the scale, that what Microsoft IT looked like in terms of configuration manager and also in terms of the number of desktops, this is our configuration manager architecture look like. If you see on the top, this is about our central site, and we have aligned our primary site as with a regional site. So if you see from the left, you have a Redmond primary site, then you have North and South America. In the center, you see limited services, which is nothing, it's just a patching only. We don't provide software distribution. That's why we call limited services. And then we are followed by the Asia and Europe sites. So to give you a scale that this is whatever the solution we are talking about, we have implemented in this scenario, where we have servers and desktop. Primarily, we have desktop 280,000, but there are like 400 servers which are configuration manager, which we manage, and we are talking about them. With this, I would like to invite Karthik to talk about the DCM, give you a high-level overview of DCM, because that's the base, and then I will come back on the alert and how do we act on this system.
Thanks, Shitanshu. We know that in this life cycle, there are 3 different building blocks, so like 3 different components. One is desired configuration management, which is in Config Manager, and the second one is the Ops Manager, and the third one is Service Manager. Out of all these 3, the very important one is DCM, because DCM is going to go and do the actual check on the client side and make a machine compliant or non-compliant. If you don't have Service Manager, if you have a different way of creating the tickets, you can skip Service Manager and you have your own ticketing system. Similarly, SCOM alerts can also be set with the standard templates. But DCM, the settings vary for different CIs. So it's very important to understand how DCM works. So we're going to go over a little overview of what is DCM, how it works. What does DCM do? With DCM, you can audit all your compliance settings and standards. You'll be having thousands and thousands of settings on your server side as well as the client side. You can monitor those and then find out how many machines are missing this particular setting. Also, you can proactively monitor any drifts in the compliance. Say you have 100% of machines are compliant with a particular settings, a particular registry key. And suddenly you see that there is a drift of, say, like 70%. With the compliance report, you can check how the machines are doing with that particular setting and take actions immediately. That action can be many ways. It can be a manual action, or it can be an auto-remediated one. We're going to talk about how we handled in MSIT, as well as there are some custom scripts that you can do to auto-remediate. And with all these, what do we get? You have your environment stabilized, the reliability increases, the performance increases, as well as the security of your environment increases. As an example that Shitanshu mentioned, like there are some admin accounts that need to be part of the local admin group. We do some check on those machines so that we have this proper security level maintained in our servers. So before we get into the DCM technology, we just want to set the ground level right. There are some concepts involved. First one is CI. CI is the configuration item, which means the actual check that's being done on the client side. This is the particular setting check that happens that you configure in DCM. You can create multiple DCMs and add them into baselines. So baselines are basically a bunch of CIs and will be targeted on to the collection of machines in Config Manager. Baselines the CIs can be actually spread across different baselines. So you can create one CI and you can use that same CI on multiple baselines. So that's why we have the DCM has these 2 different concepts, CI and baseline. What are the types of checks that you can do in CI? There are like various checks, say like file check, WMI check using a WQL query or a SQL query, or you can also check anything on the machine using a script. DCM supports VB-script as well as PowerShell, including JavaScript. But most of us use VB-script and PowerShell. So even if particular out-of-box setting is not fulfilling your need, you can go with a custom script. With that, we're going to talk about the data flow of DCM. For that, I'm going to divide the screen into two halves. The top portion talks about the server-side activities, and the bottom portion talks about the client-side tasks. To start with, there are a lot of configuration packs available, pre-canned, built-in already, available online in Microsoft site. You can directly download them freely and import them into your config manager console. Most of the needs will be fulfilled, let's say like user settings or any kind of a security settings are already pre-canned there. But if you still feel that those configuration packs are not fulfilling your needs, then you can go with a custom CI, which is you can go to the admin console and create your own CI. We have a demo on this, how to create these CIs with different types of checks. Once you create your CIs, bundle them into baselines, and then target that through the collection in Config Manager. The client will get the policy now and do the check, different types of checks that are part of CI. Now, if that setting or that check passes, the machine becomes compliant. If that particular check fails, the machine becomes non-compliant, will be sent back to the Config Manager server. Along with that, it will also create an event log on the local machine if you set the CI in a particular way. That's a small tweak there in the CI. You don't have to set this on all CIs. We're going to show how to set this up in the CI so that the event log gets generated. Okay, now we know what is DCM. How this DCM service manager as well as the operations manager plugged into the compliance stack automation. For that, we developed an internal process, which we call as 4As, talking about these 4 different phases we have in the compliance lifecycle. The first phase is assess phase. Before starting any implementation or any project, you need to understand your environment before doing anything. So look at your settings, look at your different compliance that you're going to do, and understand that first. And then second phase is assign phase, which is creating the CIs as well as the baselines in DCM, and assign that to a collection of servers and machines. And the third phase is the alert phase, which will be done on the SCOM side. When a machine becomes non-compliant, you have to set the alert so that you get the regular alerts for non-compliant machines in SCOM. So now we have all three with DCM and SCOM. The fourth phase is the actual remediation phase, which is the service manager ticketing. We have service manager, so we leverage that. But if you have any other ticketing system, you can use that. There are other ways of remediating too by creating these scripts and sending it through software distribution. All these 4 phases combined together forms the compliance lifecycle. We're going to talk about each phases and the steps involved in that briefly with demos in between. The first phase is assess phase. As I told, there will be a lot of settings. You may not want all the settings to be monitored. Look at the critical ones. There will be some setting that can, if it's not there on the machine or the server, that can interrupt your business. So look at those critical settings and see how that setting works, because you have to call that setting in the CA appropriately. It could be a WMI setting or a SQL settings. You have to create the CA accordingly. And so it's very important to understand the behavior of the CI. Once you plan for the CI, the next phase is the assign phase. Create the CIs accordingly, and then create the baseline. The very third important point is the target collection. If you are checking some SQL setting, you don't want to send this to the pool of IIS machines, because that particular setting will not be there. All machines will become non-compliant, and you will create a lot of tickets out of this. So the target collection is very important based on the CI and baseline. And as with any deployment, create a pilot, watch out for the results, and if you feel comfortable before taking to production, look at your results and then take it to the next level of production machines. With that, we're going to go with a small demo of creating CIs in DCM. I'm going to show 3 different CIs. One is for the port 80, which is the scenario which we already talked in the slide, and a couple of other CIs. Before starting the demo, is everyone able to see this screen properly? Do you have to zoom it or the back? Okay, good. This is, most of you might have known already this. This is the config manager console. DCM has a separate node here, and CIs are called here in this folder, and the configuration baselines are here. We have already added or imported the scenarios as CIs and configuration baselines here. I'm going to go with the port 80 check here. So to start with, you have to create a CI by right-clicking on CI and go to New and go to a general configuration item. If it's an app-based CI, you can choose the other one, which is app CI. Give some name, port 80 check. Go to next. Here, this is an object. Say, if you want to check the existence of a registry key or a file, you have to create an object here. Since we are going to go with the script-based CI for port 80 check, I'm going to go with the next step, which is the setting. Here, click on the new and go to script. Give a name for the actual check, port 80. As I mentioned before, you have three options, three types of scripts you can check. Using three types of scripting model, you can check VB script or PowerShell or JavaScript. I'm going to use a PowerShell script here. Basically, what it does is it runs that netsh command and then see whether the port 80 firewall rule is set as well as enabled. And if it is set, it's going to give the echo statement with the 0. If not, it's going to come up with 1. Copy this. Minimize. Copy this and paste it in the script portion. Now, this script will be checked on the machine side or the server side. And in the validation tab, you can check for anything you want, say like string or integer or a date or time. I'm going to go with the string because the output of the script will be either 0 or 1. So click on the new validation, and I'm going to say the port 80 operator is 0, which means the machine will become compliant. I'm checking whether the machine is compliant or not. And the important one about important setting about creating the event log is right here. The severity of the type of event log you want to generate when a machine becomes non-compliant. It can be either information or warning or error. If you don't want any event log to be set, you can select information, no event message. So I'm going to set it up as error and click OK.
Yeah, Karthik, let us ask that. How many of you are using Configuration Manager and already aware that you can create an event from the CIs? One. And honestly, when we started this project, we initially thought that we have to do some custom coding for getting the event. We didn't was aware that we can drop the event. So this was really that saved our time. We can just select and it can create an event on the server or wherever you want.
Okay. I'm going to click OK. Next. And this talks about what are the platforms you want this setting to be run. Next and next. Now the CI is created, and I'm going to create 2 more simple CIs just to explain how to create a registry-based as well as the file-based check. Right-click again onto the new and go to the general configuration item. I'm going to say file check. Next. When you want to do a file check, as I mentioned, you have to select the object. So I'm going to do the file check. Here, I'm going to give the path as well as the name of the file. Say like ctemp for the demo purposes, demo.txt. Right. And you can, if it's a 64-bit location or a 32-bit application, you can select that appropriately here, yes or no. And the actual validation, you don't have to set anything here because it will go and check whether the file exists or not. If it exists, then the value here will become 1. So we are going to actually checking by having this value 0, we are checking the existence. You can also check what kind of attributes set on a particular file as well as the permissions. This is where the security aspect of DCM comes in. You can maintain the security of a particular file or a folder through this. I'm going to leave it default and click OK. And you don't have to set any setting here. And we created the next CI now.
So you can even check the folder permissions?
Yes.
Folder permissions. If someone has granted more permission on any folder, that could be alerted. Okay.
Correct. The last one I'm going to create is based on the registry. Okay. Here, you don't have to create anything because we are not checking the existence of a registry key. Now, the setting is registry-based. I'm going to give some name. And then the Hive is HKLM. And the key is, I'm going to check the config manager client version here. Software, Microsoft, SMS, mobile client. Okay. And the value name is product version. Okay. And the validation, I want to make sure the product version starts with 4. So I'm going to go new. There are multiple operators here. You can select any way you want and then do the check. I'm going to do the begins with 4. And then I'm not going to set the alert here now for sake. And then go with OK, next, 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 and finish. So now we have 3 CIs created. I'm going to create a baseline. So for creating baseline, right-click on New Configuration Baseline and select Test. Yeah, I'm just getting some name. Test BL, next. Here, since we created a general CI, click here. You will see all the CIs that are created. So the one we did is port 80 check, file check test, and the other one is red check. Okay. Next, next, and the baseline is created now. Now we have to assign this to a collection. So the baseline is here, test BL, right-click on it, and do an assign to a collection. Next, browse the collection. As you may know that collection is the pool of machines that you can have it configured in the config manager. So since it's a sandbox environment.
Are you sure? I don't want to lose my job targeting all systems.
It is a sandbox environment with just one machine, I'm sure. I wouldn't prefer to use all systems right away. Just do a pilot, as I mentioned before. Click on all systems, and then next. You can schedule it, how often you want this CI to be running on the machine and do the check. I go with 1 day here, and then next, done. So now the baseline will be evaluated in a regular frequency at the machine side, and we'll find out whether these settings are there on the machine side. In the interest of time, we are going to go and we already created those baselines, file check and the registry check. I'm going to use the file check for this demo and then show how it works on the client side. So on the client side, everything is completely silent, no user pop-up, nothing. But for demo purposes, we are going to forcefully evaluate the DCM baseline. The config manager applet is in control panel, config manager 32-bit, and all the DCM baselines will appear here. Now, the file check is already compliant. If you remember, this is the file it was checking before. So if this file is already there, that's why the machine was compliant. I'm going to delete this now and then start the evaluation of file check. Takes a couple of minutes, or at least 1 minute.
So what it is doing in background?
At the background, it uses the policy and then check for whether use the XML and make sure the machine has this file or not, and send this as an state message to the server.
Oh, it's not compliant.
Okay, already it's not compliant because the file is not there. If you click on the view report, it will tell you why this machine was not compliant. So since it is an existence check, you don't get this current value. But if you are checking for a particular value, and if that value is something different, then you can also see this current value as here, the current value as whatever the value that's set on the machine already. So this also gets populated on the server side for you. Okay. So with that, with the non-compliance, it should automatically set the event log already. So let's take a quick look on the event viewer. Yep. So when the machine became non-compliant, it dropped that event log here because I set it up as a warning message to log it in event log. So as you can see, this is a file check baseline, and it dropped an event log. We are going to talk about in the upcoming demos how this is being picked up and in SCOM, as well as creates a ticket in Service Manager. With that, I'm going to hand over this to Shitanshu to talk about the next two phases, alert as well as act.
Thanks, Karthik. So what we have covered so far, we covered for the first phase, assess. We covered the next phase about assign. Now we are going to talk about the two phases, which is alert and act. So the first phase is alert. On the alert, we already seen the baseline configuration item and decided the standards. Now we said, how do we get alerted? So there's first thing you have to decide about the target, which Karthik had talked about it, that target could be the SQL set of servers or target could be the IS set of servers. So make sure you define your target very accurately, because the baseline could be result into the inaccurate data or inaccurate alert. So that's very important. The second point is about defining the CIs and making them alert, so which we already did. We have made sure that all the CIs option we selected as warning or error based on environment. We also need to make sure that now the next thing happen in in alert, we deploy or create a custom ops manager event rule, which is based on this event ID. So I will walk through and do a demo how to create this event in the ops manager. If you are ops manager administrator, you probably have done it many times, but I will just walk through that for someone who has not done it. And then you take this rule and deploy in a pre-production environment so that you make sure that the alerting of this event, which we have seen, is accurate and is not having a false alert. So we'll walk through that, how to create this alert in the next demo. Okay. So this is the System Center Ops Manager authoring console. One of the reasons we use Ops Manager authoring console for all our custom rules, because when you are creating a new rule in the management pack, we do not want to deploy that rule immediately in the production environment, because it need to be tested. So as a best practice, and Microsoft and also I think most of you will be already following, we create any rule in Ops Manager authoring rule, then we export this rule, then import in a pre-production environment. When the testing and validation is completed, then only we take this rule and deploy in production. So I will show you browse that how to create a rule there. So I go to the monitors under the health model in the Ops Manager authoring console. We go to a new rule, and there are a lot of options available what type of rule it is. Since it is an event-based rule, we'll go to the Windows event and go to the simple option, which is you have three options: event reset, manual reset, and timer reset. What we wanted to check is that every 15 seconds, this rule should be triggered on the machine. If the event is there, that it should be alerted in the SCOM console. So I will go with the timer reset options. And there is a few fields which we have to, like element ID, which is a rule description. So we'll give a TechEd demo. The display a TechEd demo, and also I'm going to do is for the port 80. So I will specify that port 80 check. I can copy paste the same element ID as a display name. So make sure that it's very clear for if we do the display name. And the description I will write custom event rule for port 80 check. In the target, you have all the different objects and classes in the management pack you can select, and here I'm going to select just all computer group. You can, this is not recommended based on your computer group you have defined. This is just a test environment. I will select computer group. Since it is a configuration item, and especially the configuration state and standards, I will select the configuration state. In the category, it's not it's related to configuration health, so I will go and select the configuration health. Here it is. We go to the next. It asks where this event is. All the events which come from the SMS client, they go into the application log, application event. So we select the application as an event log. The next is specify the event ID. So I know that this event ID is 11.11.857. Event source is SMS client. All the DCM related event source are SMS client. And then you can add more expression if you want. For example, if I want to add that this event level should be like error, because if I'm dropping all the events as a error, then I can drop and say that event expression is equal to error. So whenever this three criteria meets, it will automatically create a event. Then it goes the timer. So we default keep is 15 seconds for any alerting, for any non-deviation changes and alerting. With finish. Once you are done, this event custom event is created. You can see under the system health configuration state, which is called TechEd demo, TechEd port 80. What are the few changes I'm going to do, which was not an option during creation of this? Go to the properties. In the health tab, I make it sure that it is a critical. You can leave it as warning, but we always do it. All changes, deviation should be critical. One more thing you have to do before the last step is to enable this. This is a very important step. Like generate alerts for this monitor. So once you enable this one, you can set the priority high, low, medium based on there. One more thing, because this alert is created, and if you are using any ticketing system, you really want the analyst or engineers to know what this alert means. So you really go and add the description data, which is nothing. You just select the description. Whenever the alert comes, it will, along with the description, it will be there that this is a port 80 failure. Whatever the event description is there will be visible to the analyst who is working on that alert. You press OK and then apply. And that's done. The last step you have to do, export this management pack, deploy in pre-production, test it, and deploy in production finally. So that's the step I wanted to show you, that in the alert, this is the custom. There are total 6 steps to create event. And that's what I like, take less than 10 minutes, and then you can test it and deploy it. So now I'm going back to the presentation. So we just saw that how to configure the DCM event rule in Ops Manager. And just for the sake of the demo, if it doesn't work, and also I want to share the slides with you, that if you want to see, this is the same thing what we did it. So I have a slides available, and the same walkthrough is available. So if you want to go run through it offline, you can go through it. The same data is available what we showed in the demo. Now the last phase is about ACT. This is my favorite phase, because this is the last phase. So last phase is always the favorite phase. Now talking about what we do with the alert. Now we have assigned it, we have alert in the Ops Manager, what next? So the two things we have, or two options you can say. One is that we have to decide whether this alert or to be auto-remediated. If it is auto-remediated, what you can do a software distribution through Configuration Manager using the dynamic collection of Configuration Manager R3, where it can automatically create a collection of all systems which are non-compliant for that particular baseline. Once that collection is created automatically, which you don't have to put any machines which are non-compliant, you can have the same script which you have used in the identifying the drift by changing the bit just a little bit to make it forcefully. So you can do the software distribution on all the non-compliant, and you don't have to do any manual action for making the standard, making the configuration. However, if there are changes, you do not want to have software distribution, or you do not want to run the script, or you have certain reasons you do not want to have auto-remediated, then you need to have a ticket created for someone to look into that alert. It could be the Ops Manager, or you can go forward and if you are using Service Manager, which we are using in our case, we create and have a ticket for that. So for every alert which comes in Ops Manager, which is actionable, we want to have someone to assign to work on it and fix that problem. We use software distribution if you are not using software distribution, we use a service manager and the ticket is assigned. So now what we are going to show you an end-to-end scenario, because we have shown DCM, we have shown ops manager, what it looked like from start to end. So that's what I would like to invite Karthik to show you the end-to-end demo, including all three components.
Thanks, Shitanshu. So we have talked about the theory a lot. So how it actually works, let's put all these three components into action and see how this actually be there in the real world. To start with, we're going to show you a machine non-compliant, how it becomes non-compliant, and also create an alert as well as the ticket. So this is the machine I have, and I'm actually, as I showed in the previous demo, I was checking a particular registry key, and the value should start with 4. And that registry key is already 4 on this machine. And if I go to the control panel and go to the config manager applet, it's already compliant. The client version is already compliant. So if I change this registry key to something else, say like 5, this machine should become non-compliant when I evaluate. So let's do the evaluation. Meanwhile, I'll keep the SCOM. This is Service Manager, and this is SCOM. Active alerts and everything open, along with the event viewer too. So now, the machine is still evaluating. Now the machine became non-compliant. Once the machine became non-compliant, it's going to show the alert in the event log. Now let's look at the config manager, the SCOM. It already created an alert. It was empty before, now it created an alert now. And we have to wait for 1 or 2 minutes because the the service manager has to pick up and create an IR for us. The IR ID will be automatically loaded here once it gets created. And also you can check the IRs here. While it's going to create the IR or get the results, I'm going to show you how SCOM as well as the service manager are integrated. So in this service manager console, if you go to administration, there are connectors available. Still loading. Okay, connectors. This is the connector that you have to set up, which talks or communicates, which helps communicate between SCOM as well as the service manager. How does it look like? When you go to the properties, there are 4 settings that you have to set up. One is the general tab. The other one is the server detail. You have to give the SCOM server name as well as a credential to connect to, and what type of rule you want to check. This is the actual template. There are multiple templates here pre-canned. You can create your own template. This template is nothing but where you want to port the port the IRs, meaning tickets, to which queue you want to send this to. In Microsoft IT, since the volume of the tickets is pretty high and the chances of incidents are high, we have a custom tool to look at all the tickets and then divide that to the right or pass it on to the right tier teams or right support teams. Okay? And the poll interval is every 30 seconds. Now let's go and check whether the the ticket is created or not. Yes. It is created because you can see that, as Shitanshu mentioned, the title is SMS client. This is the actual event source that will be created on the machine. See, if you see this event source, it is SMS client. And the event ID is 11857. SCOM will check this and create the alert here, which is this, SMS client, and we'll check for the client version baseline name. And the ticket is already created with this SMS client as the name there. So with this, any change suddenly happens on your environment at the DCM evaluation frequency will picked up by DCM, create an event log in the non-compliant machines, and it will automatically create a ticket to the right team. So it will reduce your troubleshooting time as well as reduce your incident it will drastically reduce, I hope, drastically reduce your incident levels.
I want to give a big applause for this demo because this was a more complicated demo than what we have done so far. This was like operation manager, service manager, and system center configuration manager.
Thanks. With that, I'm going to go to the presentation. This is the screenshots of all the alerts and tickets and everything. In case if you don't remember the screens, you can go through this offline. What we talked about, like how the things look like. This is the alert on the machine side when the machine becomes non-compliant, and this is the actual alert on the SCOM side, which is like alert phase. And the fourth phase is the act phase, which is the ticket that got created in Service Manager. Where all we use DCM? There are some other real-world scenarios which we used, where we used DCM in Microsoft IT. To give some examples, we used custom DCM check or a script check to check when when a machine is having an old signature version, say like 7 days old signature, and it will automatically make the machine non-compliant. We'll show it in the report. With that, we could able to find out how we are doing on the antivirus signature, which is pretty important for any organization. And the second one is software update compliance. For out-of-band patches, suddenly you have a 24-hour exploit and you have to find out the compliance level. You can use DCM and check the compliance level and find out how we are doing on the patch compliance. A third one is fallback status point. Sometime in Microsoft IT, we had to change the fallback status point server name. We had to stamp this on all these machines because they had a different FSP name. For that, we have to find out how many machines are having this old FSP name. We use DCM to monitor how many percentage of machines are having old FSP name, and then targeted the software distribution package to change the FSP name. Also, sometimes we suddenly get this ad hoc software inventory check. What is the file version of on all our machines? What is the file location or the file product name? So we don't have to go through the software inventory for this because that needs some change. And also software inventory takes extra time because it has to go through the subfolders and everything. With DCM, it's very simple, and also it runs more frequently to get your software inventory based check without even go through software inventory. And the last one is sometimes we had this client cache size changed by users, and we had some package distribution problems in Config Manager or even patch distribution. So we monitored client cache size through DCM, and that has improved our client health performance drastically. So these are some of the real-world scenarios where we use DCM and monitored our health level. And with that, I'm going to call Sudhanshu to talk about what we have in the pipeline for DCM in Config Manager 2012.
Thank you, Parth. So before I let you go, you have to tell us that how much time it will take for us to do all this. If you have any rough estimate that phase one, okay, phase two is a days or months of work?
Okay. If you have all these three components already installed in your environment, DCM, as I told, there are a lot of configuration packs already available, pre-canned. You can download them and import them. So it's not going to take much time for that. Unless if you have some specific setting pertaining to your environment, then you have to script that. Or most of the out-of-box checks, say like registry or WMI or file check, are pretty easy as I showed up in the demo. So from DCM perspective, it's pretty easy. Also on the SCOM, as well as the Service Manager, there are templates available already. So you have to just go in there and use those templates and fill in those boxes, and you're ready to go. So it probably should not take more than a couple of days, at least for your bunch of settings.
Okay. If not, they can contact you. Okay. So what I'm going to, we have covered the life cycle of compliance. We talked about all 4 phases. But I'm going to give you a brief overview that what is going to change in settings management, which is a new name for DCM, in Configuration Manager 2012. So this is the biggest change, which we are very happy about it. In Configuration Manager 2012, you have seen that when I talked about like in act phase, that if the settings are not as per standard, you can do the software distribution. You don't need to do in Configuration Manager 2012, because in the same CI where you are creating the configuration item, there will be a checkbox enforce settings. So if any machine does not meet the standard, just by enabling one check mark, it will go and enforce the settings. So that's a big settings management improvement, or the changes coming in Configuration Manager 2012. And it will force, for example, the server name example which you given for the FSP, rather than finding the machine who has the old server name for the FSP name, we just forced all clients to have the new FSP name. So it reduces our time to remediate those things. It also have the in-console monitoring. We looked into the DCM console. It's like basically it's showing in the only all the CIs. It's showing only baseline. It does not have a good monitoring in the console itself. Like you go to the report, open the SQL SSRS report. In the 2012, you have the in-console dashboard or report, which will help you knowing the overall state of the baseline. Simplifying administrator experience, what it means that we talked about how to create the baseline by knowing the registry values, by knowing the WMI. What you can do in settings management in Configuration Manager 2012, you can have a one goal system, which is standard. You can browse that system from the console and you can select what settings you want. You don't need to do like take the settings from one system and then export, import. You can really browse and create this. So, and also you can set the SLAs. So you can say that my SLA for file product version is 99%, so it can alert you when the 99% machines are not as per the product version what you are looking forward. Last thing is also the role base. What it means that if you have someone is compliance manager in your company, what you can do, you can assign that a specific permission only. So he will not able to do anything else apart from this compliance, but he will have access in Configuration Manager to do this certain role, to do this. So the role-based security model also gives that person permission only to do that certain setting. With this, I would like to rephrase all the best practices we came around, and what I recommend. One thing we have repeated a couple of times, that before you jump on creating custom CIs, please look into the all available configuration packs which are available. I'll just my estimate that most of settings you will find there already. You don't need to create any custom one. And if you have to create custom one, then it will be the edge case, and really would like to know that one. Plan type of checks in configuration item. What it means that when we are assigning the CI and baseline, make sure that you assign to right collections. It should go to SQL settings, should go to the SQL servers. All the IS settings should go to the IS servers. That is one of the mistake could happen very easily. Software update. We talked about that you can use the software update based on our learning. What we have found, if you have a large enterprise like Microsoft 300 or 280,000 desktops, when we enable the software update CIs for all our patches, it was like 17 or 18 patches, we were overwhelmed with the performance of the server. So what I think that only use it like out of band scenarios, active exploit scenarios, when there is a one patch. When you use for 18 or 20 number of patches and use it monthly, the server performance, you could see some spikes going on. So what our recommendation is that if you have need of it for one out of band or exploit, then use the CIs for knowing the patch compliance or security update, not for all of them every month. That's not something I would recommend. Ops Manager authoring console, always use the creating for tickets or creating for custom event rules, because you don't want to have a production going at the first point. Performing pilot of DCM is something very recommended when you can have the test results. And the last thing is what we made a mistake. We gone ahead and did everything, and we forgot our support teams. And as soon as we deployed this tool, they were flooded with all this incident. They have no idea where this is coming from. And make sure you do the communication before you deploy this tool, so that people who are getting these alerts, getting this ticket, they are aware what to do, have a support training or troubleshooting guides, or you have some knowledge base article available for them. So communication is very important if you are planning to implement this one. These are key takeaways. What we get out of this, if you do everything here, what we talked about it, you are going to have a better change control, better standard configuration control. Also, you will have increase your availability and infrastructure or service health by it. So that's our goal, and that's why you talked about it. With this, these are the different information link where you can download the configuration packs which are already available. There are videos and blogs from the product group which shows how to create a CIs. If you don't remember the demos, you can refer them. Our team has a blog in the bottom, and we have a account where you can see all these details coming in. So the slides will be available on the TechNet portal. You can download this. These are our email IDs and the business card. You can always contact if you have any questions. If you don't have now, you can ask later as well. And some of the common things you have seen 100 times so far. Track sources, all the resources, and you can win a Zune. So give us the feedback, evaluation, what you like, and how we can improve for the future. Thank you very much. If you have any question, I will recommend that if you can ask on the microphone, that will be, everyone can hear us. Do we have a microphone somewhere for this question? Yeah, you can ask.
It all depends on the need too, right? So we have, okay. To repeat the question, why do we have to go and do this on the client side? It depends on the type of check you're doing. For the port 80 check and the IIS setting check, we deployed our DCM rules to server pool. But there are certain checks that can be done on the client side too. That's like an FSP site server name. For that, we sent this DCM rule for the client to the client pool. So if you have certain settings that are pertaining to server side, send the DCM rule only to the server collection. Oh, that's for the demo purposes. You don't have to do anything on the machine side. The machine will automatically evaluate at the regular frequency and will send the report to the server, to the config manager server. You don't have to do anything. Yes, I showed it up in the, I can show it if you want.
In the DCM overview, when he's shown the DCM configuration manager console, there was a dashboard.
Dashboard, and also shows this, how the pie chart view, what are the different baselines and how they are, how much percentage they have compliant.
Any other question? It's a free download, yeah. Okay. Yes. Yes. Correct. You need this. Yeah. Because exactly. So you have to have some here for the demo purpose. What I have an empty management pack. But if for the production environment, you probably already having a management pack, you can export it, or you can have this as a custom management pack for all the custom rules, because you maybe end up with having a lot of custom ops manager rule. Why don't you have a separate custom rules management pack? Whatever the approach meets your. Yes. So at this moment with Configuration Manager 2007, you can do the use Configuration Manager through software distribution. So you can deploy the script on the script to run that and change the settings.
So do you guys in your environment, do you guys monitor baselines and check, or if the user takes the laptop home, install something, some other software, monitor that?
No, because in Microsoft IT, we have all users as a local admin. So they can do anything what they want on their desktops. So there's not locked down environment. So we didn't have that.
But you can definitely have that. The CIs that I showed up in the demo, those are all general CIs. There are app-based CIs. So you can give the MSI code and then check whether this particular product is installed on the machine or not.
So would you have to specify a list of applications to check?
Yeah, for now.
And then you just use the command line, MSI command line
To uninstall, you can use that through software distribution, but that will be changed in 2012. You can take actions automatically through DCM itself. So if a machine is having unwanted software, you can uninstall that through DCM itself. That's a big change.
So to get your scenario, you're trying to have that only set of application to be installed. If anyone install extra application, that should be automatically uninstalled. It is possible in Configuration Manager 2007, it will be just some extra.
But with CM 2012, with the app model, you don't have to go through DCM2. With the app model, you can create your package that does all the detection and then uninstall if you don't want a particular product to be there. True.
Yes, baseline.
True.
And the reason you need that baseline because you need to know where to compare with.
Yeah.
So you're creating a whitelist or a blacklist? So ones that are, you're creating the list of ones I definitely want to uninstall?
You will create a whitelist, means what you wanted,
What you
because
want.
blacklist you don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you create that these are the application I wanted. Anything outside this should be non-compliant and should be take action whatever you want, or it could be reported only. Yes.
SCOM integration via the client or the SCOM integration is directly with SCCM? Because it seems like in the SCOM, you have to generate an alert on the
So on-
client or SCOM to pick up the alert.
So how we have done in our environment, yes, we do not have the SCOM agent like everywhere, right? So on the server side, we have a SCOM agent. So all the server and services and application level of monitoring on the server side, it's based on the event ID. And SCOM agent on that server take that event ID and send it back to the SCOM infrastructure. However, on the desktop side, what you can do, you can use the configuration manager server as base where all the data is being reported from the client, right? So based on the baseline target, you can say that, for example, compliance, if less than 90%, I need an event. And that event could be on configuration manager server, which can be ops manager. On the configuration manager server, based on the data what is coming back to the configuration manager servers from all the client.
So the integration of SCOM is with the Windows machine.
Yes,
not
with the
really with SCCM.
yes, not with the so SCOM and SCCM are not talking to each other. It's based on the client and event ID.
Similarly, with your service manager, the integration is not with SCCM, right?
It's with the
It's
ops
with
manager.
The ops manager.
Ops manager.
Because as it showed, there is a connector that will be polled. With that connector, the SCOM server will be polled every 30 seconds or every minute. So it will create a ticket automatically whenever an alert comes in based on the rule that you set up. So like you don't want to set ticket for every alert, so you can set it up too.
If you don't have SCOM, you can't do SCCM with your service manager integration.
Without SCOM service manager
So
integration.
if you have a
it's
service
difficult.
manager, how do you means service manager? I need to ask with the service manager experts. I think it is possible because service manager can talk to configuration manager, like getting the data. So I can connect you with the service manager folks. That do you have only CCM and service manager? Okay, okay. But it's a good feedback. I will ask them. Thank you. Anyone have a question? Good. Thank you.